Once upon a time, a certain king was hunting in the great forest, and he chased a wild beast so eagerly that none of his attendants could follow him. When it was dark, he saw that he had lost his way. He saw an old woman with a head which nodded perpetually, who came towards him, but she was a witch. "Lady, can you show me the way to get out of the forest?"
Oh, yes, King, but on one condition. And if you do not fulfill that, you will never get out of the forest and will die of hunger in it.
"What kind of condition is it?"
I have a daughter who is very beautiful. If you will make her your queen, I will show you the way out of the forest.
The king consented, and the old woman led him to her little hut, where her daughter was sitting by the fire. She received the king as if she had been expecting him. The king saw that she was very beautiful, but still she did not please him, and he could not look at her without secret horror. After he had taken the maiden up on his horse, the old woman showed him the way, and the king reached his royal palace again, where the wedding was celebrated. The king had already been married once and had 7 children, 6 boys and a girl, whom he loved better than anything else in the world. As he now feared that the stepmother might not treat them well and even do them some injury, he took them to a lonely castle which stood in the midst of a forest. There they remained hidden, for the road to it was so hard to find that the king himself could have not found it. If a wise woman had not given him a ball of yarn with wonderful properties, when he threw it down before him, it unrolled itself and showed him the way. And the king went so often to see his dear children that the queen was displeased at his absence, and she became curious and wanted to know what he went out into the wood for so often alone. She gave a great deal of money to his servants, and they showed her the secret and told her likewise of the ball which alone could point out the way. And now she knew no rest until she had learnt where the king kept the ball of yarn. And then she made leather shirts of wild silk. And as she had learnt the art of witchcraft from her mother, she sewed a charm inside them. And once when the king had ridden forth to hunt, she took the leather shirts and went into the forest, and the ball showed her the way. The children, who saw from a distance that someone was approaching, thought that their dear father was coming to them, ran to meet him. And as soon as the shirts touched their bodies, they were changed into swans and flew away through the forest. The queen went home quite pleased, and thought she had got rid of her stepchildren. But the girl had not run out with her brothers, and the queen knew nothing about her. Next day the king went to visit his children, but he found no one but the little girl. "Where are your brothers?"
Dear father, they have gone away and left me alone."
She told him that she had seen from her little window how her brothers had flown away over the forest in the shape of swans, and she showed him the feathers. The king mourned, but he did not think that the queen had done this wicked deed, as he feared that the girl would also be stolen away from him. He wanted to take her away with him, but she was afraid of her stepmother, and begged the king to let her remain one more night in the castle in the wood.
"I must stay here no longer, but go and seek for my brothers."
When night came, she ran away and went straight into the forest. She walked the whole night long, the next day also without stopping, until she could go no farther for weariness. Then she saw a forest hut and went into it, and found a room with 6 little beds, but she did not venture to get into one of them, but crept under one, and lay down on the hard ground, intending to pass the night there. Just before sunset, she heard a rustling, and saw 6 swans come flying in at the window. They alighted on the ground and blew at each other, and blew all the feathers off. Then the girl looked at them and recognized her brothers. She was glad and crept forth from beneath the bed. Were very delighted to see their little sister, but their joy was a short duration. "This is a shelter of robbers. If they come home and find you, they will kill you."
But can you not protect me?
"No, only for 1/4 of an hour each evening can we lay aside our swan skins and have during that time our human form. After that, we're once more turned into swans."
Can you not be set free?
"No, the conditions are too hard. For 6 years you may neither speak nor laugh, and in that time you must sew together 6 little shirts of start forth for us. And if one single word falls from your lips, all your work will be lost." And when the brothers had said this, the 1/4 of an hour was over, and they flew out of the window again as swans. The maiden, however, firmly resolved to deliver her brothers. She left the hut, went into the midst of the forest, seated herself on a tree, and there passed the night. Next morning she went out and gathered starworth and began to sew, but could not speak to anyone, and she had no inclination to laugh. When she had already spent a long time there, it came to pass that the king of that country was hunting in the forest, and his huntsmen came to the tree on which the maiden was sitting. "Who are you? Come down to us. We will not do any harm." She only shook her head. As they pressed her farther with questions, she threw her golden necklace down to them, and thought to content them thus. However did not cease, and then she threw her girdle down to them, and as this also was to no purpose, her garters, and by the degrees everything that she had. The huntsmen, however, did not let themselves be turned aside by that, but climbed the tree and fetched the maiden down, and led her before the king. "Who are you? What art you doing on the tree?" But she did not answer. As she was so beautiful, the king was smitten with a great love for her. He carried her to his castle. Then he caused her to be dressed in rich garments, and she shone in her beauty like bright daylight, but no word could be drawn from her. He placed her by his side at table, and her modest bearing and courtesy pleased him so much that she said, He placed her by his side at table, and her modest bearing and courtesy pleased him so much that he said, "She is the one whom I wish to marry, and no other woman in the world." And after some days he united himself to her. The king, however, had a wicked mother who was dissatisfied with this marriage.
Who knows from when the creature who can't speak comes? She is now worth of a king.
After a year had passed, when the queen brought her first child into the world, the old woman took him away from her, and smeared her mouth with blood as she slept. Then she accused the king of being a man-eater. The king would not believe it. She, however, sat continually sewing at the shirts, and cared for nothing else. The next time, when she again bore a beautiful boy, the false stepmother used the same treachery, but the king could not bring himself to give credit to her words. "She is too good to do anything of that kind. If she were not dumb and could defend herself, her innocence would come to light." But when the old woman stole away the newly born child for the third time and accused the queen, who did not utter one word of defense, the king could not do otherwise than deliver her over to justice, and she was sentenced to suffer death by fire. When the day came for the sentence to be executed, it was the last day of the 6 years during which she was not to speak or laugh, and she had delivered her dear brothers from the power of the enchantment. The 6 shirts were ready, only the left sleeve of the 6th led to the stake. She laid the shirts on her arm, and when she stood on high and the fire was just going to be lighted, she looked around and 6 swans came flying through the air towards her. The swans swept towards her and sank down so that she could throw the shirts over them. And as they were touched by them, their swan skins fell off, and her brothers stood in their own bodily form before her. The youngest only locked his left arm and had in the place of it a swan's wing on his shoulder. They embraced and kissed each other, and the queen went to the king, who was greatly moved, and she began to speak and said,
"Dearest husband, now I may speak and declare to you that I am innocent and falsely accused."
As she told him of the treachery of the old woman who had taken away her 3 children and hidden them. Then, to the great joy of the king, they were brought thither, and as a punishment, the wicked stepmother was bound to the stake and burnt to ashes. The king and the queen with their 6 brothers lived many years in happiness and peace.